Bună dimineața, doamnelor și domnilor! Bună ziua, doamnelor și domnilor! Bine ați venit la declarațiile comune de presă ale ministrului Afaceri Externe al României, Bogdan Aurescu, și al ministrului Afaceri Externe al Republicii Estonia, Eva-Maria Liimets. Domnule ministru, aveți cuvântul.
Minister, you have the floor. It's a special pleasure to welcome today to Bucharest Mrs. Eva-Maria Liimets, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Estonia. Dear Eva-Maria, welcome back to the offices of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Romania. I also salute the presence in Romania of an important delegation of Estonian businessmen who will attend tomorrow a business forum, a very important event that we've been working on a while now, and I'm very happy that it is taking place. This morning we also had the pleasure to participate together with the minister in an academic event, a conference organized by New Strategy Center, where the main topic of discussion was how to make the eastern flank of NATO be more resilient, a topic that is very relevant in the current security context, which indeed requires a unitary and homogeneous consolidation of the entire eastern flank from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. Also, a few moments ago, we inaugurated together an exhibition dedicated to the 100 years of bilateral relations between Romania and Estonia, because last year we celebrated the centennials of our diplomatic relations and also 30 years from re-establishing diplomatic relations. Today's consultations were very consistent in terms of stepping up our bilateral cooperation, as well as coordinating our positions in the current security context marked by the illegal aggression of the Russian Federation in Ukraine. As for our economic cooperation, we've discussed together ways to stimulate bilateral trade, which already this year has increased by 47% compared to last year. Together with the minister, we agreed to continue to support the efforts of our communities in this sense, and I was mentioning earlier the bilateral economic forum that is organized. I'm sure that new cooperation niches will be identified for our businessmen. We also talked about other sectorial cooperation means like defense, education, connectivity and digitalization. Actually, there was a bilateral group for digitalization. The decision to form this group was with the opportunity of the visit of the President Iohannis to Tallinn last year. The work group has as topic the capitalization on the experience of Estonia in e-governance in the context of the efforts of our country to implement digital solutions. Today we talked about the important contribution of the cooperation, NATO cooperation cyber defense centers of excellence, and where we have also Romanian experts seconded. Of course, the major topic was the situation in Ukraine, which affects not only the region but the entire Euro-Atlantic and European space. We underline that Russia must stop immediately its military actions in Ukraine. It should withdraw its troops, and we condemned once again firmly and decisively the attacks of Russia against civilians. We condemned once again together the crimes committed in Bucha and in other settlements in Ukraine. It is obvious, there is no doubt that the responsibility belongs to Russia for these crimes, because they were committed in an area of Ukraine when this area was occupied by the Russian forces. And it's very important that all those that have committed these deeds be investigated, be brought to justice and answer for their deeds. This is the reasons why Romania and Estonia and other states of the international community have asked, even since the 2nd of March, the prosecutor of the International Court to start an investigation in terms of the possible war crimes, crimes against humanity committed on the territory of Ukraine, including during this conflict that was illegally and abusively started by the Russian Federation on the 24th of February. So in this context, we consider that it's very important for the prosecutors of the International Court and his experts to go immediately to Ukraine and to start the investigation in the areas of Bucha and other cities that are already controlled by the Ukrainian authorities in order to gather evidence so that the files that will be managed be solid. So it's very important that the International Criminal Court act immediately in this case. We also discussed about ways to continue to coordinate together, but with other partner allies, in order to put pressure on the Russian Federation to continue to isolate the Russian Federation internationally. Romania continues to support a firm response of the international community, including by adopting new sanctions from the EU, sanctions that should be robust and solidly legally fundamented, that could discourage the escalation of the conflict. We are in a process of discussions at EU level to approve additional sanctions. We also talked pretty in detail about the efforts that Romania has made and is still making in order to manage the situation of the refugees from Ukraine who entered Romania and to support the refugees that come to Romania and who want to stay here. We consistently talked about the measures that together we want to make at the level of the NATO alliance, that is the strengthening of the deterrence and the defense posture on the eastern flank, especially in this context when this is very necessary. We talked about the measures taken on the recent summit in Brussels, and we also talked about the preparation of the decisions that will be made in June in Madrid. It's important to build on the decisions that have been made in Brussels, and I'm talking especially to the creation of the battle groups on the eastern flank, in the southern part, Romania included, in the process of strengthening the deterrence and defense posture of the allies on the long run. Also, it is going to be very important, and Romania and Estonia will coordinate in terms of the adoption of the new strategic concept of NATO. We talked about the situation of the Republic of Moldova that is faced with a humanitarian and economic crisis that is pretty important. It was generated by the massive wave of refugees, which accumulated with the already existing difficulties like natural gas and inflation, puts pressures on the budgetary capacity and administrative capacity of the state. So the Moldova Support Conference is even more important, a conference that together in Germany and France, Romania is organizing on the 5th of April in Berlin. And this conference will be co-chaired by me and my German and French counterparts. This conference focuses on immediate assistance, but also launching a platform for support for the Republic of Moldova, which is called Moldova Support Platform. This is a special importance project that adds to our bilateral and European actions in order to articulate a more solid support for the Republic of Moldova. We've talked today about the importance of energy energy security for our countries and at European level, including in the context of the implementation of measures necessary to eliminate the dependency on the Russian Federation. We also reiterated the fact that it is important to ensure the energy security of Moldova and Ukraine. We have the same position when it comes to the enlargement of the European Union in terms of starting the negotiations for Albania and Republic of North Macedonia, but also in terms of the support for the accession candidacies presented by Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia as an expression of their legitimate will to be part of a European family. It is very important in this context to grant concrete support to the states, financial and political support, but also technical support by transfer of expertise and by integrating these three states in the EU as soon as possible. I thank the Minister also for the Estonia support in terms of Romania's goals to access OECD and to be part of the Schengen area. We've talked also about other important bilateral formats where Romania and Estonia collaborate very closely, and I'm referring to B9. Last week, I participated in the ministerial meeting of this format, and before the summit in Madrid, Bucharest will be the host of the next summit that the Romanian President Klaus Iohannis with his counterpart, the Polish counterpart, will host. We've talked also about the 3Cs initiative and many other common topics, but I would like to stop here now and thank the Minister for her visit to Bucharest and also for the very substantial and open discussions that we have had. Eva-Maria, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Bogdan, very much for this warm welcome that me and my delegation has received here in Bucharest. It is really a great pleasure to be here after this prolonged visit, and very good that we have such a busy schedule with bilateral meetings and also 2 conferences, one on security and another one on business relations. Romania and Estonia have much in common, including a strong European identity. And we are like-minded in fundamental issues like security, EU's neighborhood policy, and also transatlantic ties. But I believe that we can dig deeper and to create an even stronger bond between our 2 countries. After 100 years of diplomatic relations and also 30 years of re-establishing diplomatic relations, we should find new ideas how to freshen our bilateral relations. And I think that this business seminar tomorrow will provide us new ideas. Located on NATO's eastern flank, we are on the same geostrategic axis and consequently share a similar approach to security and defense-related matters. It is important that in NATO we take a step further and establish a strong forward defense policy, taking into account current security concerns for our region. And I also would like to use the opportunity and thank Romania for its decision providing or participating in Baltic air policing mission in Estonia next year. Located on NATO's eastern flank, it is very important that we coordinate our position like we did today and also coordinate it in the P9 format like we did last week. Today, NATO celebrates its 73rd birthday, and NATO has given us many opportunities to work together to guarantee our common security. However, while we are meeting, war is ongoing in Ukraine, so we meet in extremely difficult time, and therefore we must continue to adjust our defense and security posture. We also must continue to speak how we can support Ukraine the best way, and also how to pressure Russia to stop this unfortunate war, because every day we see innocent people killing, and this brutal and unjustified war, which was started by Russia, has lasted already for more than a month, and thousands of civilian killings have taken place, as we saw over the weekend in Bucha, where the Ukrainian armed forces discovered innocent killings in a massive scale. And of course, Russia must be taken accountable for these actions. And it is really important that the international community steps up right away and asks International Criminal Court to start with the investigations without delay, because Russia's armed forces must be taken accountable for these actions, and of course war criminals must be taken into the court. We talked also what the international community should do in addition to pressure Russia to stop this unjustified and unprovoked war, and also to help Ukraine to restore its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Therefore, we must continue to further pressure Russia to stop this war, and we also from our perspective, we must speed up with the next package of sanctions at the EU level, and we continue to push forwards with as strong sanctions as possible to cut off the money flows to Russia so that they could not finance their war machine. And also we should sanction the energy sector. We should not have any limits to sanctions, because this unjustified, brutal war must end. Also, we have proposed that Russia must be taken accountable also for destruction of Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. It means that Russia must be part of rebuilding Ukraine, and we should start right away. We should use Russia's frozen assets to rebuild Ukraine. We should also use part of the payments for the gas to Russia to rebuild Ukraine. We have suggested to open a so-called separate escrow account, which would be kind of fund where part of the gas payments would be gathered and later used to recover and rebuild, to recover the cost of rebuilding Ukraine. So it is very important from our perspective that we must use all the legal opportunities to pressure Russia, first to end the war, and second to make them accountable for the war, and third, of course, the war criminals must be taken to the court. When we speak about the isolation of Russia, then of course we also must suspend Russia from the Human Rights Council, because this is an international organization to promote human rights and fundamental values, and we believe that at the moment Russia does not belong to this community. At the same time, of course, we must continue to support Ukraine, and we spoke about this in length as well with Bogdan. we share the same concerns because we see that Ukraine is really fighting for their freedom, but also for European values. And both Romania and Estonia have been in the forefront of helping Ukraine. Estonia alone has provided Ukraine with 230 million euros worth of assistance so far. 220 million euros was for military aid, and about 11 million euros was humanitarian aid. But of course, we continue to look what we can do more together. And I also would like to commend Romania for taking so many refugees and also for taking initiative in supporting Moldova for taking refugees, because we definitely see that the bordering countries share more burden in taking in the refugees, but we of course continue to try to do our part. I also would like to say that in Estonia, people are really feeling the pain of Ukrainians and show that Ukrainians are welcome to Estonia. They are welcome to our societies for as long as they need, as long as they can go back to their homes. So we hope that the whole international community, also other our EU partners, come along and we can continue to have this united approach that we have had so far, both within NATO and within the EU, in support of Ukraine. So last but not least, I would like to come back to our bilateral relations. As I said in the beginning, in spite of the fact that we face these very difficult times, we also need to strengthen our bilateral relationship. And I am accompanied here here in Romania by Estonian business delegation, so that we could further deepen our economic ties between our companies. And from our perspective, we see opportunities in digital development, also in fintech sector, in innovation and in cybersecurity, and also for the defense industries. So I hope that our bilateral relations continue to develop, and thank you very much for this warm welcome.
Ministru Aurescu, Minister Liimets, la acest moment declarațiile comune de presă s-au încheiat.
At this moment, the press statements have ended. Thank you very much.
Shake hands again.
Mulțumesc tare mult, Eva-Maria Liimets, Digi24. Ați vorbit despre un pachet de sancțiuni care ar putea fi luat împotriva Rusiei, un pachet cu măsuri mult mai multe. Dacă ne-ți puteți da câteva exemple de sancțiuni care ar putea fi luate de o parte de România și de cealaltă parte și de Estonia împotriva Rusiei pentru a stopa, nu până la urmă, acest război.
Au fost foarte multe discuții în ultima perioadă legate de ce sancțiuni suplimentare putem să luăm. Chiar la ultima reuniune a Consiliului Afaceri Externe, la care am participat pe 21 martie, a existat un set consistent de propuneri din partea statelor membre, dar în egală măsură cu acel prilej am convenit să
we agreed not to talk publicly about what the sanctions that are to be adopted on one hand, because this process undergoes a procedure of consulting all member states, and this consultation process is ongoing. On the other hand, in order not to put pressure on some of the member states that maybe would not be very comfortable with certain sanctions proposed, and not lastly, in order to have the element of surprise in front of Russia Federation, because if we announce publicly, well, it is possible for the Russian Federation to take some protection measures. So this is why, unfortunately, at the moment, we can't talk about the actual sanctions that will be taken. They will be discussed also this week in Brussels. And for sure, we will see public announcements in the near future after they have already been approved.
There was no translation for the question, so I didn't understand the question.
So the question was about what new sanctions we are adopting, and I just said that we are not discussing about what sanctions we adopt before the adoption because of the surprise element, because of the fact that we need to consult among ourselves, and that we decided on the 21st of March that we should not discuss publicly about proposals we have, just in order to be able to accommodate among ourselves the sanctions package.
Thank you. Yes, and from our perspective, there should be no limits for the sanctions as long as this war goes on. And from our perspective, it is very important that we have EU-level sanctions which are closely coordinated together with the United States, United Kingdom, and other like-minded countries, because only this way these sanctions are efficient. And we have made our proposals to the EU at our last foreign ministers meeting, and we advocate for a strong package. And there are some elements which are very important for us, and as there should be definitely extension of SWIFT, and also we should go forward also with energy sector sanctions. But I also don't want to go further into the details because the consensus is most important for us, and this united approach that we have had so far with the first 4 packages. And another element which I would like to underline is the element of Russia must be taken accountable, and we should use also Russia's finances to start to pressure Russia to provide finances also to rebuild Ukraine. Thank you.
Mai sunt întrebări?
From the diplomatic procedural point of view, the president of Ukraine, can you organize for the president of Ukraine to speak so quickly in the parliament? The Ministry of Foreign Affairs was not asked by the Romanian parliament to support this process of having a speech of the president of Ukraine in parliament. There was a direct dialogue between the Romanian parliament and the Ukrainian party, but we contacted at our own initiative the embassy of Ukraine, who confirmed that this speech should happen today. So please ask your question to the Romanian parliament and to the Ukrainian embassy to Bucharest. Thank you.
Mai sunt întrebări?
Other questions?
Dacă nu,
If not,
domnule ministru Aurescu,
Minister Aurescu, Minister Liimets,
vă mulțumim.
thank you.
Conferința de presă la sfârșit.
And the press conference has ended.